Well, now 4 days on and still the details remain unclear. Tonight, Channel 4 News has obtained dramatic new footage which shows in the clearest details seen so far the moment the gunman opened fire and shot at Benazir Bhutto. 3 bullets are heard being fired before a suicide bomber then detonates his device. A firearms expert has told this programme the video shows what appears to be a concussion strike, the possible moment of impact when a bullet struck the former Pakistani Prime Minister. It contradicts, of course, the official Pakistani government account that Mrs Bhutto died from hitting her head on the sunroof as she ducked into the car. I must warn you that some viewers may well find some of these images disturbing. Our diplomatic correspondent Jonathan Rugman is in Islamabad.
Well, as you say, Alex, we've obtained new images which we're about to broadcast, which provide the most conclusive evidence yet that Benazir Bhutto was shot, contradicting the government's official version of events and adding to suspicions here that it is trying to conceal the extent of the security failure which contributed to Mrs Bhutto's assassination. It's late afternoon, and a crowd estimated at a few hundred is swarming around Benazir Bhutto's car. A clean-shaven man in sunglasses is watching at the fringes. He's concealing a gun. The man in white behind him is the suspected suicide bomber. The sniper moves in to within a few feet of Bhutto, who is greeting her supporters. He fires 3 shots. The last bang is that of the suicide bomber, blowing himself up. 21 people in all were fatally injured here. You can hear their cries of pain and shock. Look at the shooting again. As the gunman fires at Bhutto, her hair is lifted. Her shawl is also seen to rise, and she falls inside her car. These images, broadcast for the first time, apparently contradicting the official version of events, which insists that Benazir Bhutto was not shot. At the spot in Rawalpindi where the former Premier was last seen alive, they've sprinkled petals in her memory. Long live Bhutto, her supporters shouted today. Bhutto is alive. Her killer must pay the price for her blood. The government says she was killed after fracturing her head on her car's sunroof lever. But many here say both pictures and eyewitness testimony make a mockery of the government's story.
I have seen that Benazir was gunshot by a gun. I am 100% sure that Benazir was killed by a gunshot.
That opinion on the street seemingly borne out by the latest pictures of Thursday's atrocity. And as more such images come to light, they will fuel the anger of protesters both here at the scene of the crime and around the country, who feel that they've been lied to by the government, that there's been a deliberate cover-up of what amounts to a massive security failure to protect this country's best-known politician. A surgeon who treated Bhutto on Thursday night said she was shot twice in the head and the neck. You can hear the shots in this footage. And again see the gun. But by Friday, the hospital mysteriously changed its story, saying no bullet wounds had been found. Instead, a government spokesman insisted she'd hit her head against her car after the bomb exploded.
When she was waving, there were 3 shots that were fired. So you could hear these 3 shots that were fired. But fortunately enough, none of the shots hit her.
But look at the car. There's no sign of blood on the silver-coloured sunroof lever. And though the car was damaged, it was bomb-proof. Every other passenger in it survived. Our pictures show Benazir Bhutto had fallen into the car before the explosion, which suggests she was more likely killed by an assassin's bullet seconds earlier. Today we spoke to a senior Bhutto aide who travelled in the car behind her. She described the government's version of events as ridiculous, dangerous nonsense, a cover-up.
If we look at the proximity of the aggressor to the victim, we take into account which side of the victim the aggressor can be seen. and then we see that the scarf at the base of her head lifts very suddenly without any other related movement. It suggests to me very strongly that there was a concussion on that side, or in other words, it looks very much like she was struck from a bullet on the left-hand side, low down on the head.
To the left of the car, we can see 3 policemen. They're doing nothing to hold back the crowd. There's no doubt Benazir Bhutto made a fatal mistake when she stood through her sunroof. Yet her aides claim President Musharraf turned down her request to allow British and American private guards to protect her. Though one of the president's confidants told me there was no security lapse.
There was enough security. I mean, especially when she had a suicide attempt against her on the 18th of October when she arrived.
But the pictures make it clear there was no security cordon around her at all. People were right next to her car.
Yes, remember, this is a country of 165 million. The way we do things here are quite different. This was one of her biggest political assets, to be within her own people, to be with them, to be amongst the crowds.
But she wouldn't protect the president like that. He wouldn't have that lack of security. She was the most famous politician in the country.
Yes.
She had nothing like it.
She was different from President Musharraf, I can assure you.
Officials have rejected calls for an independent foreign inquiry into this assassination, though they've offered to exhume Bhutto's body if the relatives who've just buried her request it.
Well, now Jonathan Rugman joins us now live from Islamabad. Jonathan, given the point that you were making at the end of your piece there, that the offer is on the table to exhume the body, in the light of that, where does this new evidence take us, this new video?
Well, it suggests, Alex, that the government has not been telling the complete truth, and that really matters in a country where scores of people have died in protests against Mrs. Bhutto's death, and indeed against the circumstances of Mrs. Bhutto's death. There are conflicting versions now of what happened, and many people on the street are saying either the security forces are trying to conceal their own failures, or even worse, that state forces may have been involved in the killing. Now, that may just be a conspiracy theory. The Americans are demanding a full investigation. Who knows whether they will get it? The crime scene has been hosed down. Thousands of people have trudged across it. The first evidence of any forensic inquiry we saw yesterday. And so the great fear in this country is that this heinous political killing will go unsolved.